You're listening to Tackling the Taboo, a journey of self-discovery through Black love. Hello, everyone. My name is DJ Dice.
Hi, I'm Dr. J.
And I'm DJ Dupsie. This episode marks our season finale of our storyboard convention. DJ Dice, Dr. J, and myself will be discussing different dynamics within Black relationships, whether that be relationship with self and others, and intersecting that with our participation in and consumption of digital media. Underneath our voices is the song I'm Ready by Kano, and this is off their 1980 self-titled album, Kano. Once again, I'm DJ Dupsie, and you're listening to Tackling the Taboo, a digital dialogue.
Like the reading circle on like chapter 8 where it talks about community. I was having it up and it was talking we were just talking about like a lot about like relationships that we have like with our parents or just like friendships, and like how sometimes our parents tell us like, oh, like you don't need friends and things like that, or like you can't really trust anyone, like you have your family. And so it was a lot. We were also talking a lot about like codependency and like how like that's very like, I think we talked about that too when we were talking about like healthy relationships, like how it can be very toxic and just like very bad for humans to like really like codepend on like someone, and like how we need interdependence, like how we need to like I guess like co-live and like co-create, but also like not really depend on other people for like everything. Like we need to be our own humans, and we just need to figure out a way how to like be like that. And yeah, it was really interesting. Also just like some of the words that they have about like what love is and like forgiveness. And yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I like that part what you're saying about our being more reliant on ourselves and less dependent on the majority culture for anything, particularly for self-validation. Because they have no intention of giving it to us anyway. They realize that would empower us. So we can't expect that those who want to disempower us are going to take steps to do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to circle back real quick to the relationship dynamic thing, particularly with the not to dwell on the Lemonade Project, but I think that that just brings up also a thing for us as specifically Black men. That I think part of the self-work that we need to do in terms of that validation, right, is for us, even though we don't say it out loud, you know, because we're not allowed to express our feelings. So we never say it explicitly, but like what comes out is that like, you know, we want to find this magical superwoman that's going to change us. Right, that's going to change us. Is just going to fix us or fix all of our problems, right? And so, if I cheat on you, ooh, baby, I'm sorry, baby, fix me, help me, fix me, right? And it's like, no, you need to be doing that work yourself, right?
Right.
Like, you need to be doing the self-reflect.
Yes.
And stop putting all that work on Black women or your partner to validate you in that way. You need to do your own kind of digging deep in terms of like, why do I have these relationship issues to where I'm insecure enough to where I need to cheat? Because insecurity isn't just about the person who gets cheated on. Insecurity is also the person who's doing the cheating. That's also coming from a place of insecurity. And so, you know, we don't say that. Again, we don't say that explicitly, but that's where it comes from, right? And so what insecurity am I dealing with when it comes to love and relationships that is causing me to do these things to hurt somebody and hurt myself eventually? And so I think that's, you know, that's why it's important for us as Black men, you know, to have those spaces, right, where we can where we can call each other out and call each other in on this stuff, because we can't be putting it all on our partners to fix me. Like, you know, that shouldn't be their burden, right? right? Like it should
Yeah.
be, it's like how people say like fix yourself before you're having kids, so that way your kids don't have to have therapy from having you as a parent.
Right.
It's the same thing with relationships. Like,
Right.
I have
Yes.
to fix my own relationship issues, so that way I'm not a burden on somebody else, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think just to say that explicitly, right, that it shouldn't be all, on the person who gets cheated on. It shouldn't be all on the person who's the receiver of the infidelity to have to do all this work and therapy. Like the person who's doing the cheating needs just as much, if not more, work.
Right. Yeah. Actually needs more, because they're both partners in the relationship are probably insecure, but having to seek comfort elsewhere without looking into the self is not only a sign of insecurity, but it's a sign of a lack of awareness of it's a sign of not being able to own one's insecurity and take the responsibility for doing something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's what we all need to, there just needs to be a general understanding. We are all insecure.
Yeah.
Okay. There are very few of us that aren't.
Hence the show that was created.
Right. And so part of adulthood or growing up is always coming back to, okay, what can I do to help myself be more responsible for myself? So that whole idea that somebody else is supposed to fix me are coming from a place of childhood where we were expecting mom and dad to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's not what good, healthy self-esteem is about. Good, healthy self-esteem says, I will take responsibility to do it on my own. It doesn't mean you won't ask help, because of course we know we will ask help, because if we were, if the only reason we wouldn't need help is if we were perfect, and that certainly isn't anybody. Okay. Mm-hmm. But the idea of the self-responsibility is, after I find out ways to improve myself, I have to take the responsibility of doing that precise job. It isn't anybody else's job to babysit me. Mm-hmm. And I think it may be harder for Black men to make that transition, because many of us are coming from single family homes. So if the opposite sex person is the one who's doing the rearing, okay, doing the heavy lifting, it kind of becomes an assumption that all of the other opposite sex people that we have intimate relationships are supposed to do the same. We don't recognize that consciously a lot of the times, but that's what's happening. We're transferring mom and dad taking care of us to now my partner is supposed to do that. And a healthy relationship is when two people come together and they both work under the principle of, I take care of my own stuff. And then I share that adult-like attitude with my partner, and we take care of each other. Okay? And so that plays into, what I've been talking about, those power dynamics. When we're both coming from the position of adulthood or taking responsibility for our individual selves, then when we do that negotiation, the negotiations are more likely to be fair and balanced. If we haven't learned that, then things are going to be off balance, and that's how things get really toxic and unproductive.
Mm-hmm. And I think where that intersects then with the what we consume digitally, right? Mm-hmm. I think comes at what a previous episode, maybe in like the first episode, when we talked about like how where we get certain messages about identity, love, relationship, right? And one person mentioned that a lot of it does come from media, film, social media, television, all the stuff we consume, and do they what kind of messages about relationships and healing are they offering, right? Because we learn through story, right? Stories are supposed to help us learn and navigate life, but if only certain stories are displayed, right, over and over again for a monetary purpose, right, for profit, not necessarily for learning or education, but because it's going to make money, or it's going to get ratings, it's going to get more clicks. When that's the motivation, right, and when it's transactional, when transaction is the motivation, then we're not necessarily being critical about like, oh yeah, this is reinforcing some toxic relationship habits, but it's catchy and it's got a good beat to it, so whatever. And sometimes it's fun, it's whatever, it's fun, but like I think we all, like we talked about in another episode, it's also okay to be critical too. Like it's good to have fun, and it's also okay to have a critical lens as well.
I was just thinking about like, I feel like people are showing, at least for me, since I'm on Twitter, people are like showing like Black love movies or just like Black movies, and then they're like, also, they're like, oh my gosh, like this used to be my favorite movie, but like as a kid, like in the early 90s, and like now, like 2020, we're like looking back, like, oh my goodness, this happened, like all this happened in this movie, like Love and Basketball. They were like, oh my goodness, people who are out here really, really acting like this, and I was like, yeah, so it's just like really interesting. And like also people say like, oh, relationship goals and things like that. Or things like that. And it's I think it's like really important for us to like have, like we said, like our own understanding of like, okay, like this is like putting into like mass media, like I see this in my family, but kind of just like seeing what our personal values are and our personal beliefs are, and like what do we envision like a healthy relationship, even if we don't have that necessarily like in television or like in music or just around us, but like what do we think one would look like, or like what do we see one would look like maybe through books or anything like that, and kind of just like sharing that with friends, or just like maybe asking like friends or like their parents, like what does that look like, I feel like can be helpful. I forgot where I was going, but yeah, that's what I'm saying right now.
Digital love. Oh, beautiful love. Computer love. Looking for my computer love. Hey. Computer love.
The song Computer Love by Zapp and Roger, released in 1985, and this is pulled from the album Zapp and Roger, All the Greatest Hits. Once again, I'm DJ Dupsie, and you're listening to Tackling the Taboo, Storyboard Convention, a digital dialogue.
Sharing my computer world. I no longer need astrology. Thanks to modern technology. Shoot 'em up, I wanna love you. Shoot 'em up, baby.
It's kind of a ticklish topic.
Okay.
But so I'm trying to find the words to say this without causing a stir. But there just aren't enough images of Black men and women getting along. And I don't just mean in intimate partner relationships, but
platonic, yeah,
but friendship, parenting, particularly boss and employee or employer and employee. Usually when we're in the media, it's like one Black person being integrated into the white world. And so the relationships are that one Black person interacting with everybody else who is non-Black. It would be nice to see more images that reflect healthy relationships between people in the Black community who are female, male, questioning, LGBT, whatever, but, you know, finding some way to build a greater positive dialogue between us. And I don't know how to do that, but just most of the things that you see in the media, digital or otherwise, is still about us being pitted against one another. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen, because unfortunately that is a large part of our interactions with one another. But it isn't. The honesty is behind how all of that toxicity comes about isn't included. So what we get is a half picture instead of the whole picture, the whole story about what's happening and why.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you know, the whole battle of the sexist things comes from the dominant culture as well. You know.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's, you know, really good point about, like, you know, representation in all different kinds of relationships, right?
Yeah.
And for example, you know, circle back to anime. I think that's one of the things that genre specifically tackles, right? Is how to show how characters progress. You know, I get, you know, through a heteronormative lens sometimes, but like showing that, yeah, a male and female character, for example, can go through an entire story, struggle, conflict, come out on the other side, and there not be this forced romantic subplot. That they can just be friends and still love each other, again, without a forced, you know, relationship kind of thing.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think it's what you said is very important to have not just, you know, good representation when it comes to intimate relationships, but all kinds of relationships and interaction and communication. Because, you know, yeah, that gets at the multi-dimension, right? Multi-dimensional. Right.
Yeah, including, you know, what I think we really need is representation of, if someone Black is in an interracial relationship, how you can do that and still be supportive of the Black community. Mm-hmm. And the Black community can still be supportive of that individual. So I'm not saying not to have interracial relationships. That's not it at all. Everybody obviously has the right to be in a relationship with who they choose. But when either Black gender or questioning make the comments that the others are, that they would never have a relationship with someone of the other gender or genders, that's problematic.
Right.
Because that means that basically you don't want to work with the other half of the Black community. And the last thing that we need are any more divisions. Mm-hmm. So for anyone who is dating outside of the Black community, I would ask that they consider, what are they putting back into the Black community?
Right.
Okay, because if you're taking yourself out of the community, then that's one of the precious commodities that we still need, which is Black people who love themselves and other Black people. If we all have the right to look elsewhere if we choose, but I think we need to ask ourselves, why are we looking elsewhere?
Right.
And so if it's because you're interested in another person, okay. But if it's because we generalize that we just don't like either Black men or we don't like Black women, like I said, that's problematic. That's
because
that should be considered really unacceptable.
Right, because on just a basic level, it's like, have you met every single black man and black woman on the earth? Like, what do you mean you don't like them all? Have you met them all?
Right. Because really what it is going back to what we were talking about earlier in the conversation, which is looking outside the self for somebody else to fix me or to validate me. Okay. So when we don't want to date or be around other people within our own community exclusively, that's what that is. I don't like my own blackness. And somebody non-black is going to make me feel better about myself or help me assimilate into the majority culture more. No, actually what that is a scarlet letter of self-hatred.
Like Kanye said, when he get on, he'll leave your ass for a white girl. Like that's what that's getting at, right? That in order to attain this social, in order to quote unquote move up, right? Or to gain status or power, so, I have to,
Right. So if you're doing that in order to quote unquote move up, then that automatically means you've already been suckered into the idea that white is right. And to me, if you believe that white is right, then that is a traitor. I'm sorry. I can't see that in any other way.
And it's a conversation that I've definitely had with folks before, especially within the queer community, because that also comes up too, right? With people, and certainly from the outside culture and white supremacy and anti-blackness, that's still rampant in the queer community as well, but also within black queer folks, right? It's that same dynamic of like dating outside of my ethnicity because I have a problem with all, black men or black women or black trans folks, right? And so, I remember just a conversation, right, some years ago, right, about like, someone saying like, oh no, if I don't, for example, like if I don't, prefer to date, someone of a certain race, then I should be able to communicate that. But then I was like, isn't that racist? Like, isn't that kind of discriminatory? Because like, it's one thing to have like, just my general, what catches my eye, what's my attraction. That's just human nature. But then to put out there that I don't think this particular group is attractive, or like I would never date someone in that group. Like that stereotyping, and that's coming from that racist or that, that anti that group. That's again, like thinking about like, where did that come from for you? Right, like that's not about them; it's about you, right? And that's not acceptable, right? To say that for me personally, because again, it's like, have you met every single member of that particular group? Have you had intimate interactions with every single member of that group to inform this now perspective that every member of that group is just terrible? And so what research have you done, either empirically or informally, to inform this opinion? Or again, are you just repeating what you hear in songs or on TV or in films about, things? Are you just repeating these just messages, or you have one or two bad experiences, and so now this just becomes a narrative that you cling on to? But even if I don't want to date someone within my own, for whatever that reason, like I still shouldn't project that onto an entire group of people.
Yeah, exactly. So if if black women demean black men and black men demean black women, ultimately what that is just the mirrored view, the mirrored vision of self-hatred. It's just looking in the mirror and then projecting it on to somebody else. Again, it's failing to own our own insecurities, and therefore taking the responsibility to heal those insecurities in a direct way. Because someone non-black isn't going to be able to fix us, particularly since non-black are the ones that caused us harm to start with. And if we don't understand that premise, we are setting ourselves up repeatedly, not only for disappointment, but for more harm.
Right.
And those around us who are black will be harmed in the process.
Mm.
So that also brings in, the African value of the community, the group is as valuable as individualism.
Mm.
And so that's the other thing that we need to really cling to. Our strength is in not only our own individual strengths, but in our communal strengths, as opposed to the majority culture, which is individualism, and I have the right to undercut any and everybody in order to get to the top. So when we as Black folk ascribe to that individualism principle in total, we're destroying us as a people, which is really sad and tragic when you consider that we were the first people.
How do you think, we could use digital media to heal, right, as a means to get at healing and to get at some of that self-work? So instead of saying, digital media is not all bad, can't be all bad, it's not all, one extreme or the other. So how can we use digital media in an intentional way to heal and,
Personally, I use, articles and like podcasts and music for myself, and sometimes I share that like with my family, and I think it sometimes really starts a conversation about like what we're consuming, even if it's like not so good light of like our people. But I think it really starts the conversation of like, oh, why is this like not a good outlook and things like that. Just like how we said, like taking a critical look or a critical analysis of like what we're consuming. And I think sometimes for me, like thinking about things sometimes can be healing for myself, and like just like envision, like seeing what I want to envision. It has really helped me. I think there's other ways that we can, or like even just like produce our own, that can be very healing.
Like a podcast.
Yeah, like storytelling. Yeah, like hip hop storytelling. Like there's so much like even art, there's like also so many different mediums of art that like meditation, like body movement, yoga, just like things that we've done in the past, and then like sometimes like we're just like reconnecting with, and so healing. But so for me, I think music, definitely like podcasts, or just like and like I read a few articles throughout the day from like Black Girl Om, or like therapy for Black girls, and like different things like that to like help me, like we said, like heal within, but also like understanding that like most of the things I have within myself, I just need to unlearn and like relearn things, and kind of like sharing that with my friends or like my mom, or things that they might find helpful. So like using digital to like really think, reflect, and heal is there's so many different ways out there for us to engage with digital media in a nice way, and for it not to like deplete us and just like drain our energy, because there's like so much, I feel like trauma porn, or just like things out there that can really hurt us, or just like we can consume it sometimes on a cycle, just like with our Twitter feed or our Facebook feed, and it can like really mess with us, like seeing our people like in these situations, or just like in the world existing and not being able to be. So I think sometimes consuming other forms, it can like help me think about like what does freedom really mean, and like how can I get my people there? How can everyone get there? Well, like what does liberation look like? So I think so sometimes I'm too critical, but like I think it's needed in like the world that we're in.
the song Firecracker by the band Yellow Magic Orchestra, and this is pulled from their self-titled album Yellow Magic Orchestra, released in 1978. Thank you for listening to Tackling the Taboo, Storyboard Convention, a Digital Dialogue. This wraps up our second season, our storyboard convention, and we hope to go back and review and replay these episodes in maybe community circles, listening circles, and have dialogue and unpack all these layers of Black love and Black life, and how we can put this all together to, live out the stories of our own lives as we're living them. We hope you'll join us for our upcoming season, where we touch on how this decade of 2020 has really started off with a bang, and how so much has happened that is new, that happened, in the year of 2020, and so much history that was, reviewed and uncovered and unearthed, that's new to us now in the present, and helping us contextualize all the things and happenings in the year of 2020, and certainly, the first half of the year of 2021 as I record this, and thinking about how the remnants of all this, the aftermath, the grief, right, as we try to open up and go back to normal, whatever normal is supposed to mean, there's going to be a lot of emotional energy in the air that, it's going to behoove us to pay attention to, and to, pulling some things from the storyboard convention, maybe try and slow down a bit and try to attend to those things before we just rush and try and go back to normal. Once again, I'm DJ Dupsie, and I'd like to thank all of our contributors to our storyboard convention this season, as well as our mini-series, My Life in Sections and Food as Medicine. We hope you'll join us for next season of Tackling the Taboo, The Raging 20s.